The healer's hands were already glowing with silver light when the vampire king grabbed her wrist hard enough to bruise, his crimson eyes wild with something between terror and rage. "Do not touch me," Valerius snarled, his voice breaking on the last word. Black veins crawled up his neck like poisonous vines, pulsing with a darkness that seemed to drink in the light around them. "I am begging you, healer, please." Fiona Ashford had never heard a king beg for anything in her life, let alone one as powerful as the immortal who ruled the vampire courts from the shadows beneath London. She'd been summoned here 3 hours ago, dragged from her clinic in Camden by guards who wore ancient armor under modern suits, told only that the king was dying and she was the only one who could save him. Now she understood why he didn't want saving. "The curse will kill you in a week," she said quietly, keeping her voice steady even though her heart hammered against her ribs. His grip on her wrist was cold as ice, strong enough to snap bone if he chose. "Maybe less, I can see it eating through your bloodstream, I know." Valerius released her abruptly, stumbling back against the stone wall of his chambers. The room was a contradiction of era's medieval tapestries hung beside modern abstract art, electric lights in iron senses that had once held torches. Everything here was a reminder that he'd lived through centuries, survived wars and plagues and the rise and fall of empires. Everything except this. "That is why you must leave now, before it spreads to you." Fiona lowered her hands, letting the healing light fade. She'd been born with the gift, the ability to see sickness as tangible darkness and draw it out with her touch. Her grandmother had it, and her great-grandmother before that. It had made her useful to powerful people, dangerous people, but she'd never been afraid to use it, not until now. "What kind of curse is this?" she asked. "I've never seen anything like it." The king laughed, bitter and broken. He looked young, perhaps 30 in mortal years, but she knew he was over 800 years old. His hair fell white as snow past his shoulders, his skin pale as marble, beautiful and terrible, the way all the old vampires were. He wore a black shirt and dark trousers that probably cost more than her flat, and moved with the unconscious grace of a predator even while dying. "The kind that transfers on contact," Valerius said. "The kind that was designed specifically for me but will infect anyone foolish enough to try to heal it. The witch who created it made certain of that. She wanted me to die alone, untouched, helpless." His hands clenched into fists. "And I will not drag you into this darkness with me. That's not your choice to make." Fiona took a step toward him. "I'm a healer. It's what I do. You are a human." He bared his fangs without meaning to, an instinctive warning. "Fragile. Mortal. This curse was made to kill immortals. It will tear through you in hours, not days. I will not have your death on my conscience for whatever eternity awaits me." "Then tell me how you got it." She pulled out her phone, opening her notes app. "Tell me everything. Maybe there's another way to break it." Valerius stared at her for a long moment, those crimson eyes searching her face. She wondered what he saw there: fear, determination, the reckless stubbornness her mother had always said would get her killed one day. Finally, he moved to a leather chair by the window and sank into it, suddenly looking every one of his 8 centuries. "Her name was Morgantha," he said quietly, "a witch I condemned to death 200 years ago for blood crimes against my people. She'd been draining vampires, using our blood to extend her own life." He touched his neck where the black veins were darkest. "I thought her entire line had been eliminated. I was wrong. Her descendant found you 3 nights ago, at a gathering of the courts." A muscle worked in his jaw. "She posed as a human dignitary, got close enough to embrace me in greeting. I felt the curse enter my bloodstream like ice. By the time my guards caught her, she was laughing. Said I had 72 hours before the darkness reached my heart and killed me." Fiona did the mental math. "That was 70 hours ago." "Yes." Valerius met her eyes. "Which means I have perhaps 2 hours left. Which means you need to leave, Fiona Ashford, before I do something desperate like order you to help me anyway." She crossed her arms. "You could try. I don't take orders well." Despite everything, his lips quirked in something almost like a real expression. "I noticed. My advisors said you argued with them for 20 minutes about patient confidentiality before they explained the situation. I take my oaths seriously." She moved closer, studying the curse with her healer's sight. Up close, it was even worse than she'd thought. The darkness had spread through most of his major veins, creeping toward his heart with each pulse. "How did they find me?" "You are known among my kind," Valerius said. "The healer who can cure anything, who once saved a vampire child from silver poisoning when no one else could. We keep track of such things." Fiona remembered that night 6 months ago. A frantic mother, a little boy who'd swallowed his grandmother's silver wedding ring. She'd pulled the poisoning from his system, watched his eyes fade from pain bright crimson to sleepy pink. She hadn't asked if they were vampires, she'd only seen a child who needed help. The mother sent my court a letter, Valerius continued. Thanked us for directing her to you, though we had done no such thing. We began watching you after that, making certain you were protected. Protected from what? From people who would use you. His voice dropped. Dangerous. From those who would force you to heal them or punish their enemies. From the 1,000 terrible things that happen to healers when the wrong people learn what they can do. He looked away. I had guards on you every night, made certain your clinic received anonymous donations, ensured that the vampire who thought to blackmail you into service last month simply disappeared. A chill ran through her. You've been watching me for 6 months? Not personally, but yes. He met her eyes again. I protect what is valuable to my people. You saved a vampire child without hesitation, without payment, without fear. That made you worth protecting. Fiona didn't know what to say to that. She'd spent her whole life trying to stay off powerful people's radars, to help quietly and live simply. The idea that a vampire king had been her secret guardian for half a year made her head spin. So now I'm supposed to let you die, she asked, after you spent 6 months protecting me? Now you are supposed to survive. Valerius stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, London glittered with a million electric lights, the city he'd watched grow from a Roman settlement into a sprawling modern metropolis. I am old, Fiona. I have lived long enough, but you have barely begun. You have decades of life ahead, thousands of people you could save. I will not let you trade that for a few extra hours of my existence. What if it's not a trade? She was thinking now, running through everything she knew about curses and transference. What if I only draw out part of it, enough to buy you time to find another solution? There is no other solution. The witch died in custody. She made certain the curse would die with her. Witches always leave back doors in their spells, Fiona insisted. My grandmother taught me that. They're too smart to create magic that could be turned against them. There has to be a way to break it. Valerius turned to face her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. Longing and fear and desperate hope, all warring across his features. Even if that were true, we have no time to search for it, and I will not risk you. Why? The question came out sharper than she intended. You don't know me, not really. Why does it matter so much if I take this risk? He was across the room before she could blink, moving with inhuman speed. He stopped just short of touching her, his hands raised as if to cup her face, then falling back to his sides. This close, she could see the flecks of silver in his crimson eyes, smell the faint scent of old books and older stone that clung to him. Because I have watched you for 6 months, he said roughly. Because I have seen you work yourself to exhaustion healing people who cannot pay you. Because you sing to frighten children while you work, and you cry when you cannot save someone, and you are perhaps the best thing I have seen in 800 years of existence. His voice cracked. Because the thought of that light in you being consumed by this darkness is more terrifying than my own death. Because I am an ancient monster who has done terrible things, and you are someone who makes the world better simply by existing in it. Fiona's heart was racing now for entirely different reasons. You can't have fallen in love with me from watching at a distance. I did not intend to. He stepped back, creating space between them again. I did not want to. But I would read the reports of your day and find myself wishing I could speak to you. I would see you laugh with your patience and wonder what it would be like to make you smile. I would watch you walk home in the rain and want to offer you my coat. A bitter expression crossed his face. Pathetic, is it not? A king, reduced to this, it's not pathetic. Fiona's hands were shaking. It's terrifying and strange and probably very inappropriate, but it's not pathetic. He looked at her sharply. You are not afraid? I'm absolutely afraid. She took a breath. But I'm also thinking that if you die in 2 hours, I'll never know if that feeling could have become something real. And that seems like a tragedy worse than the risk. Fiona, let me try. She raised her hands, calling the healing light back. Just a little. Just enough to slow it down. Then we searched for the back door together. Valerius closed his eyes. She could see the war happening behind them, duty and desire and fear all tangled together. When he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears that would never fall. Vampires couldn't cry. She remembered reading once something about immortal bodies not producing tears. If you die because of this, he whispered, I will find a way to follow you. I swear it. Then we'd better make sure neither of us dies. Fiona reached for him, her hands still glowing with silver light. Trust me. He caught her wrists again, but gently this time. I do. That is what terrifies me. Then he released her and stood still. Every muscle locked with tension as she pressed her palms to his chest. The curse hit her awareness like a physical blow. Up close, channeling her power through him, she could feel the full malevolence of it. This wasn't just dark magic, it was hatred given form. 200 years of rage compressed into a poison designed to cause maximum suffering. It ate at him from the inside, turning his own immortal blood against him, using his strength as fuel for his destruction. It was also incredibly beautiful in a terrible way. The witch who'd created this had been a master of her craft. Fiona began to pull, drawing the darkness toward her healing light. Immediately she felt it resist, felt it try to latch onto her instead. Valerius made a strangled sound and tried to jerk away, but she held firm. "I'm not taking it into myself," she said through gritted teeth. "I'm burning it out." It was like trying to burn oil-soaked wood. The curse fought against the purifying light, creating toxic smoke that made her lungs ache even though it was metaphysical rather than physical. She could feel Valerius trembling under her hands, could sense his panic that she would be infected. But she'd been doing this her whole life. She knew how to walk the edge between healing and harm. Slowly, carefully, she began to dissolve the curse. Not all of it, that would take hours they didn't have, and would definitely transfer some of the poison to her, but enough to slow its progress. Enough to buy time. The black veins on his neck began to recede slightly, the darkness pulling back from his heart. Valerius gasped, his hands coming up to grip her waist as if she were the only solid thing in a tilting world. "Fiona, stop, almost done." She could feel the curse trying to understand what she was doing, trying to adapt. Smart magic, dangerous magic. She pushed harder, burning through another layer of it, then carefully pulled her power back before it could catch her. She stumbled, and Valerius caught her, his arms wrapping around her as her knees buckled. "You reckless, brilliant fool," he breathed against her hair. "You beautiful idiot." Fiona laughed weakly. "Is that any way to talk to someone who just saved your life?" "I am not saved yet." But his voice was stronger, and when she pulled back to look at him, the black veins had retreated to just the base of his neck. "How long did you buy us?" "Maybe 12 hours. A day if we're lucky." She was exhausted, her power depleted. Healing always took energy. But fighting a curse this strong had drained her completely. "We need to find that back door." Valerius lifted her easily, carrying her to the leather chair and settling her into it. "Rest. I will have my archivist begin searching immediately." "Your what?" A slight expression touched his lips. "I am 800 years old, Fiona. I have accumulated a significant library on magical theory. If there is a way to break this curse, it will be documented somewhere." He moved to an antique phone on his desk because of course he had a landline in his vampire castle hidden beneath London, and made several calls in rapid succession. His voice shifted between languages, English, French, what sounded like Latin. Commands were given, orders issued. Within minutes, she could hear footsteps in the corridor outside as his people mobilized. "They will search through the night," Valerius said, hanging up. "But you need food and rest. When did you last eat?" Fiona tried to remember. "Lunch, I think. What time is it?" "Nearly midnight." He moved to another door, returning moments later with bottled water and what looked like expensive chocolate. "I am told humans require regular sustenance. You're not going to offer me blood?" She was only half joking. His expression turned serious. "Never without your explicit consent. And never as food. You are not prey, Fiona Ashford, you are." He paused, seeming to search for words. "You are something far more precious than that." She took the water and chocolate, suddenly shy under the intensity of his gaze. "You said you've done terrible things in 800 years. I have." He did not look away. "I have killed, I have conquered. I have made decisions that sacrificed individuals for the good of my people. I have been ruthless when I needed to be, and sometimes when I merely wanted to be." His jaw tightened. "I am not a good man, Fiona. I am not even a man anymore. I am a creature who has outlived my own humanity." "But you protect children," she said quietly. "You protect healers. You've built something here that's lasted centuries. That has to mean you care about more than just power." "I care about order. About preserving what is mine." He moved to the window again, looking out over his city. "Vampires are predators. Without structure, without law, we would tear the human world apart. I have spent 8 centuries building a system that allows us to exist without causing chaos. That is not altruism, it is self-preservation. You're trying to make yourself sound worse than you are." He turned to her, eyes glinting in the low light. "I am trying to make certain you understand what you are involving yourself with. If you save me, if we break this curse, I will not be able to let you go. I will want to keep you close, to protect you too." He stopped himself. "You deserve honesty. I am selfish enough that I will take everything you are willing to give and always hunger for more." Fiona met his gaze steadily. "What if I want to be kept?" The stillness that came over him was absolute predatory. "Do not say such things unless you mean them." "I mean them." Her heart was pounding, but she'd never been more certain. "I know this is crazy. I know we barely know each other. But I've spent my whole life helping people and then watching them leave. I've been alone because anyone who gets close to me sees me as useful rather than valuable. She stood, crossing to him. You've been watching me for 6 months. You know the worst parts of me, how stubborn I am, how I work too much, how I cry at sad movies and burn toast and sing off key, and you still look at me like I'm something precious. So yes, I mean it. Valerius reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so powerful. You are precious, he said softly. You are starlight and summer rain and everything beautiful I thought I had forgotten how to see. Then he was kissing her, his cool lips on hers, one hand sliding into her hair while the other pulled her closer. He kissed like someone who'd been starving for it, like she was air and he'd been drowning. Fiona melted into him, her hands fisting in his expensive shirt, and for a moment nothing else existed except this connection between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had gone almost completely silver. That is what happens when we feel strong emotion, he murmured, touching his own face in wonder. I have not felt this in, I cannot remember when. A knock at the door interrupted them. Valerius called permission to enter, and a female vampire with long white hair swept in. She wore a modern pantsuit, but moved like she'd been born in a different century entirely. My king, she said, then her eyes widened as she took in the reduced curse marks on his neck. You let her heal you, partially, Valerius confirmed. Seraphine, this is Fiona Ashford. Fiona, my chief archivist and oldest friend. Seraphine's crimson eyes assessed Fiona with sharp intelligence. The healer who saved young Matthias, we are in your debt. She turned back to Valerius. I have the library staff pulling everything we have on curse-breaking and transference magic. But my king, if this curse was created by Morgantha's line. She hesitated. Speak freely, Valerius commanded. The Morgantha witches were known for blood-locked magic, curses that could only be broken by the caster or someone of their direct bloodline. Seraphine's expression was grim. If this is truly her descendants' work and she died without breaking it, then it cannot be broken, Valerius finished. Yes, I considered that possibility. No. Fiona shook her head. There's always a way. Magic follows rules, even chaos magic. We just need to find the pattern. Seraphine tilted her head, studying Fiona with new interest. You know magical theory? My grandmother taught me. She said healing and cursing are two sides of the same coin. You can't understand one without understanding the other. Your grandmother was wise. Seraphine gestured toward the door. Come, both of you. I want to show you something. They followed her through corridors of stone and shadow, downstairs that seemed to descend forever. Fiona had known intellectually that there was a vampire court beneath London, but seeing it was different. They passed chambers filled with priceless art, training rooms where warriors sparred with inhuman speed, libraries that would make scholars weep. Everything was lit with electric lights now, but the bones of the place were ancient. We have existed here since before the Romans, Seraphine said, noticing Fiona's wonder. This was a sacred site first, then a fortress, then a hiding place. Now it is home to nearly 300 vampires and their human companions. Human companions? Those who know our secret and choose to live among us. Family members, lovers, those we have saved who had nowhere else to go. Seraphine glanced at her. We are not mindless monsters, Miss Ashford. We are people who happen to require blood to survive. They reached a massive iron door carved with symbols Fiona didn't recognize. Seraphine pressed her palm to it and it swung open silently. The archive beyond was breathtaking. Shelves stretched up 3 stories, filled with books and scrolls and what looked like clay tablets. The smell of old paper and older magic filled the air. Every piece of magical knowledge we have accumulated in 8 centuries, Seraphine said. If the answer exists, it is here. She led them to a table where several books were already laid out. These are the references we have on Morgantha, the original witch, not the descendant. Perhaps understanding her will help us understand the curse. Valerius pulled out a chair for Fiona, then settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. She could feel him flagging slightly. The curse was still eating at him, just slower now, but he projected nothing but strength. They began to read. Morgantha had been powerful, that much was clear. A hedge witch who'd turned to darker magic after her family was killed in a vampire raid. Not by Valerius's people, but by a rogue clan in Eastern Europe. She'd spent decades hunting vampires, draining them, using their blood to extend her life and increase her power. She was mad with grief, Fiona murmured, reading an account from 1824. She blamed all vampires for what happened to her family. Many of our kind were monsters in those days, Valerius said quietly. Lawless, brutal. I spent centuries bringing them to heel, establishing the codes we follow now. But I cannot undo the damage that was done before. Fiona touched his hand, You're not responsible for what others did. I am responsible for what I did to her. He pulled out another book, flipping to a marked page. This is the trial record. I was not kind. The account made Fiona's stomach turn. Morgantha had been tortured for information about other rogue witches, then executed in front of an assembly of vampire courts as a warning. It had been legal by the standards of the time, even merciful compared to some punishments. But it had also been cruel. I regret many things from my earlier centuries, Valerius said. This is among them. Not the execution. She had killed 17 vampires, including children, but the manner of it. The humiliation. I was trying to project strength to the courts, to prove that no one could threaten us with impunity. But I broke something in her before she died. I saw it in her eyes. And her descendant never forgot, Seraphine said grimly. Blood grudges among witches can last generations. They searched for hours. Fiona's eyes began to blur with exhaustion, but every time she thought about stopping, she'd look at Valerius and see the black veins creeping slowly back up his neck. Her healing had bought them time, but not enough. Dawn was approaching when she found it. Wait. She pulled a slim journal toward her, written in faded ink. This is a diary entry from one of your court scholars, dated 1825, a year after Morgantha's death. What does it say? Valerius leaned closer. Fiona read aloud. I have heard disturbing rumors from the witch covens. They say Morgantha's daughter escaped our purge, that she was pregnant when she fled. They say she swore an oath of vengeance on behalf of her unborn child. The oath was witnessed by the Crimson Moon Coven and sealed in blood magic. Terms that Morgantha's line would have the power to curse the vampire king who killed her, but that the curse could be broken by an act of equal sacrifice. Silence fell over the archive. Equal sacrifice, Seraphine breathed. That is the back door. What does it mean? Fiona asked. Valerius had gone very still. It means someone must willingly give up something of equal value to what was taken from Morgantha. She lost her life, her dignity, and her revenge. To break the curse, someone must offer the same. How do you sacrifice life, dignity, and revenge? Fiona shook her head. That doesn't make sense. It does if you think like a witch. Seraphine was pacing now, her mind working. Life for life, someone must be willing to die in your place, my king. Dignity for dignity, they must be humiliated, broken as Morgantha was broken, and revenge for revenge, they must forgive you for accepting their sacrifice. Fiona's blood ran cold. No, there has to be another way. There is not. Valerius stood, and his voice was utterly calm. And even if there were, I would not take it. I will not ask anyone to die for me, to be broken for me. I have lived long enough. I have done enough terrible things. Perhaps this is simply justice. That's ridiculous. Fiona stood too, facing him. You've spent centuries building something good out of the chaos. You protect people now. You can't just give up. I am not giving up. I am accepting consequences. He cupped her face in both hands, his touch achingly gentle. Fiona, you gave me something precious in these few hours. You gave me hope that I could feel again, that I could be more than just a king and a monster. That is enough. That is more than I deserved. Stop talking like you're already dead. She was crying now, hot tears spilling down her cheeks. Please, there has to be something we can do. There is. His thumb wiped away her tears. You can live. You can heal people. You can make the world better the way you do simply by existing. And perhaps sometimes you can think of the vampire king who loved you for one perfect night. One night isn't enough. No, he agreed softly, but it is what we have. Seraphine had moved to the far side of the archive, giving them privacy. Fiona could see her own reflection in the dark window, saw herself small and human, and so desperately inadequate to the task of saving him. Then she saw something else. Wait, she said slowly. The curse requires equal sacrifice, life, dignity, and revenge. But what if we reframe it? What if we find a way to give those things without dying? Valerius frowned. I do not understand. Life for life. What if instead of dying I give up my mortal life? Let you turn me? The words came out in a rush. Dignity for dignity, I stand before your courts and let them see me vulnerable, making the choice to become what I am not. And revenge for revenge, I forgive you for accepting my sacrifice, for changing me. Absolutely not. Valerius released her, taking a sharp step back. You cannot possibly understand what you are suggesting. Becoming a vampire is not a gift, Fiona. It is a curse of its own. You would lose the sun, the ability to have children, the warmth of human connection. You would watch everyone you know grow old and die while you remain frozen. You would have to drink blood to survive, would have to fight the instinct to hunt. I will not do that to you. It's not your choice, she said firmly. It's mine. And I'm choosing this. You are choosing out of desperation, out of fear of losing someone you barely know. I'm choosing because I want to, Fiona interrupted. Because I've spent my whole life being temporary to everyone. My patients get better and leave. My friends drift away when they realize how much of myself I pour into healing others. My family is gone. I am so tired of being temporary, Valerius. I want to be permanent. I want to be yours." He stared at her, and she could see the war happening in his expression. Want and fear and desperate hope. "If this does not work," he said roughly, "if the curse does not break, you will have given up your humanity for nothing. You will be trapped as a vampire for eternity, and I will still die. Then we'll be together in whatever comes after." She reached for him. "But I think it will work. Magic is about intent and balance. This gives the curse what it needs, a willing sacrifice that matches what was taken." Seraphine had returned, her expression unreadable. "The girl is right, my king. It is the best interpretation of the terms we have found." And she hesitated. "It is her choice to make." Valerius looked at Fiona for a long moment. "If I do this," he said quietly, "I will want to keep you forever. I will be possessive and demanding, and I will never let you go. Are you certain that is what you want?" "I'm certain." Fiona took his hands. "I'm terrified, and this is probably insane, but I'm certain." He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they were bright with that silver sheen that meant strong emotion. "Then we do this properly, before the court with witnesses, so the magic recognizes it as a formal sacrifice. Now?" Fiona's heart was racing. "We have perhaps an hour before the curse reaches my heart again. We do this now or not at all." They moved through the compound with purpose, Seraphine sending runners ahead to gather the court. By the time they reached the great hall, a massive chamber that mixed ancient stone with modern architectural elements, vampires were filing in from all directions. Fiona had never seen so many immortals in one place. They were all pale, all beautiful in that otherworldly way, all deadly. Some wore modern clothing, others traditional garb from their original eras. All of them watched with crimson eyes as Valerius led her to the center of the hall. "My people," he said, and his voice carried to every corner without needing to shout. "You know I am cursed. You know I am dying. This human healer, Fiona Ashford, has found a way to break the curse, but it requires a sacrifice that I cannot in good conscience accept." A murmur ran through the crowd. Fiona could feel their attention on her like a physical weight. "She offers to give up her mortal life to save mine," Valerius continued. "To stand before you and be transformed, to accept the loss of all that she knows for someone she has known mere hours. It is an act of equal sacrifice to what was taken from the witch Morgantha: life, dignity, and the revenge of making me live with what I have accepted." He turned to Fiona and his voice dropped so only she could hear. "Last chance to change your mind, Starlight. Once this begins, there is no going back." "I don't want to go back," she said clearly, loud enough for the court to hear. "I want to go forward with you." Something like awe crossed his face. Then he raised his voice again. "Witness this choice, witness this sacrifice. Let the magic know that it is freely given." He bit his own wrist and dark blood welled up. The smell of it filled the hall, rich and strange and somehow compelling. Fiona had never been tempted by blood before, but this called to something deep in her hindbrain. "Drink," Valerius said softly. 3 times. "Then I will drain you to the edge of death and bring you back." Fiona took his wrist and drank. The blood was cold and thick and tasted like metal and dark wine and something she had no words for. Power flooded through her, ancient and vast. She drank again, feeling it start to change her from the inside. A 3rd time, and Valerius gently pulled away. "Now comes the hard part," he murmured. "I am sorry for this, beloved." Then his fangs were in her throat, and the world went white with pain. She'd expected it to hurt, but not like this. It felt like he was drawing out her very soul, like everything she was poured into him with her blood. She heard herself cry out, felt her legs give way. Valerius held her effortlessly, cradling her as he drank. The court was utterly silent. Darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. She was dying. This was what death felt like, cold and empty and so very tired. "Fiona," Valerius's voice, distant, "stay with me. Just a moment more." She tried to answer but couldn't find the strength. Her heart was slowing, each beat weaker than the last. Then his wrist was at her lips again, and blood flowed into her mouth. "Drink," he commanded. "Drink," and live instinct took over. She drank desperately, and this time the blood was different. It was life itself rushing through her dead veins. She felt her heart stutter and stop, felt the terrible moment of absolute stillness. Then it beat again. Once, twice. Stronger now, fed by his ancient blood, the transformation tore through her like wildfire. Every cell in her body dying and being reborn, stronger and stranger. Her senses exploded outward. She could hear every heartbeat in the hall, could smell the different blood types, could see colors she'd never known existed. And the pain. The terrible, magnificent pain of becoming something new. She screamed, and Valerius held her through it, murmuring comfort in languages she didn't know. The court remained motionless, bearing witness as she thrashed and burned and died and lived. Finally, after an eternity compressed into minutes, it was done. Fiona opened her eyes, and the world was different. Everything was sharper, clearer, more. She could see the individual threads in Valerius's shirt, could count the stones in the distant walls, and his face she could see every emotion written there, love and fear and wonder and relief. Did it work? Her voice came out different, richer somehow. In answer, Valerius touched his neck. The black veins were gone completely. Not faded, not receded, gone. It worked, he breathed. Then he was kissing her and she could taste herself on his lips, could feel the connection between them like a living thing. My brave, foolish, perfect girl, it worked. The court erupted in cheers. Vampires who'd stood silent through the whole transformation now celebrated, the sound echoing off the ancient stones. Seraphine was at their side in an instant, checking Fiona with a healer's eye. The transformation is complete, she pronounced. And clean. I have never seen a turning go so smoothly. Because it was willing, Valerius said. Because it was love, not compulsion. He helped Fiona to her feet and she realized she felt strong. Incredibly strong, like she could run for days without tiring. Easy, he cautioned. Your strength will take time to control, and you will need to feed soon. The transformation consumes enormous energy. The thought of feeding should have horrified her. Instead, Fiona just felt a distant curiosity. She was different now. The rules had changed. I will teach you everything, Valerius promised. How to control the strength. How to feed without killing. How to walk through this new existence. You will never be alone in this, Fiona, I swear it. She looked around at the court, at the vampires who were now her people, at the ancient compound that was now her home. She'd given up sunlight and mortality and everything familiar, but she'd gained something too, a place to belong, a purpose, and someone who looked at her like she hung the stars. No regrets, Valerius asked softly. Not yet. Fiona leaned against him. Ask me again in 100 years, he laughed, the sound full of genuine joy. I will in 100 years after that, and 100 after that. I have eternity to make certain you never regret choosing me. The next hours passed in a blur. The court celebrated their king's survival with a feast, blood and wine and delicacies from a dozen countries. Fiona was introduced to dozens of vampires, their names and faces blurring together. Everyone wanted to meet the healer who'd saved their king, who'd chosen to become one of them. Seraphine stayed close, running interference when Fiona became overwhelmed. You need to feed, she said quietly. Your control is remarkable for a newborn, but you cannot delay much longer. Valerius appeared at her elbow immediately. Come, I will teach you. He led her away from the celebration through the winding corridors to a quiet room. A human sat there, a young man who looked nervous but willing. This is Marcus, Valerius said. He is one of our regular donors. He consents to feed us and we compensate him well. We do not kill, Fiona. We have not needed to in centuries. Marcus offered his wrist. It's an honor to help the king's mate, he said. The scent of his blood hit Fiona like a physical thing. Her fangs descended without her meaning to, sharp and strange in her mouth. She looked at Valerius in panic. I have you, he said calmly. The first time is always hard. I will help you stop before you take too much. She bit carefully, trying to be gentle, and warm blood flooded her mouth. It was nothing like Valerius's. This was mortal, sweet and rich and satisfying in a completely different way. She drank and felt strength pour into her, felt the lingering weakness from the transformation fade. Valerius's hand on her shoulder. Enough, beloved. Let him go. It took effort to pull away, to seal the wound with her tongue the way instinct demanded. Marcus was pale but smiling. Thank you, my lady, he said, accepting a glass of orange juice from Seraphine. I heard him, Fiona whispered. No more than a blood donation would, Valerius assured her. He will be fine, and you fed without killing, without losing control. That is remarkable, Fiona. Most newborns require restraints for their first feeding. She wasn't sure whether to feel proud or horrified. How long until this feels normal? Years, perhaps, or never. Some of us never stop mourning our humanity. He touched her face gently. But you are not alone in this. Whatever you feel, whatever you struggle with, I will be here. They returned to his chambers as dawn approached. Fiona could feel the sun rising even through the layers of stone, a prickling awareness that made her skin itch. You will need to stay underground now, Valerius explained. The sun will not kill you instantly, but it will burn. We have safe houses throughout London with blackout accommodations, but the compound is safest. Fiona looked around the chambers that were now apparently hers too. What about my clinic, my patients? We will arrange things. He guided her to sit on the edge of the massive bed. You can still heal, Fiona. You can still help people. But you will need to do it at night, and you will need to be careful. The human world cannot know what you are now. The weight of it was starting to sink in. She'd saved him, broken the curse, but she'd also fundamentally altered the course of her entire existence. Her patients would wonder where she'd gone. Her neighbors would notice she never appeared during the day. Eventually, people would realize she wasn't aging. Hey. Valerius tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. Whatever you are feeling, tell me. Do not carry this alone. I'm scared, Fiona admitted, and excited, and I have no idea if I made the right choice. But I'm also, she searched for the word, certain. I'm certain about you, about us. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. He kissed her forehead. Rest now. The first day of transformation is exhausting. When you wake tomorrow night, we will begin planning how to integrate your new life. But Fiona wasn't ready to sleep yet. The witch's descendant, the one who cursed you. What happened to her? Valerius's expression darkened. She died during interrogation. The curse required her death to complete itself. She knew she would not survive casting it. It was a suicide curse, meant only to kill me before she died. So she gave her life for revenge against you. Fiona thought about the terms of the sacrifice. And I gave my life to save you. That's the balance. Life for life, but with opposite intent. You gave up far more than life, Valerius said quietly. You gave up everything familiar. The sun, the warmth of mortality, the simple joy of eating food or feeling your heart beat without thinking about it. You gave up growing old, having children if you wanted them, dying peacefully surrounded by grandchildren. You gave up the entire human experience for someone you knew for mere hours. I gave up being alone, Fiona corrected. I gave up being temporary, and I gained eternity with someone who sees me as more than just useful. She took his hand. I would make the same choice again. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I do not deserve you. Probably not, she agreed, which startled a laugh out of him. But you're stuck with me now, for at least a few centuries anyway. Try forever. His arms tightened around her. I am not letting you go, Fiona Ashford. Not in 100 years, not in 1,000. You are mine now. And I am yours, and that is how it will remain. She should probably be worried about the possessiveness in his voice, the absolute certainty. But instead, she just felt warm, safe, like she'd finally found the place she was meant to be. Tell me about the future, she said. What happens now? Valerius settled back against the headboard, pulling her with him. Now we figure out how to preserve your healing practice. I have contacts who can help. There are night clinics throughout London that cater to supernatural clientele. You could work there. Help people who understand what you are. What about my human patients? We will transition them to other healers, carefully, so they do not realize anything is wrong. His fingers traced patterns on her shoulder. I will not lie to you, Fiona, this will be difficult. Leaving your old life behind always is, but you will adapt. We all do. How long did it take you to adapt? He was quiet for a moment. I was turned in 1224. It took me perhaps 50 years to stop mourning my mortality, another century to truly embrace what I had become. But I did not have someone to guide me, to help me through it. You have me. You have Seraphine and the entire court. You will not struggle alone. Fiona thought about that. Nearly 200 years to fully accept his transformation. She hoped it wouldn't take her that long. Tell me about when you were human. What were you like? Arrogant, Valerius said immediately. I was a minor noble's son, convinced I was destined for greatness. I wanted to be a knight, to fight in the Crusades, to win glory and honor. A bitter expression crossed his face. Instead, I was turned by a vampire who thought I was pretty and wanted a companion. I spent the first decade of my immortality as little more than a pet. That's awful. It was common in those days. The old laws had not yet been established. Vampires did as they pleased with little consequence. His jaw tightened. When I finally escaped him, I swore I would build something better. A society with rules, with structure, where the strong did not simply prey on the weak. It took centuries, but I did it. That's why you're so protective, Fiona realized. You know what it's like to be powerless. Yes. He looked at her. And I will never allow you to feel that way. You gave up your mortality for me, Fiona. I will spend the rest of eternity making certain you never regret it. She kissed him, soft and sweet. Stop making dramatic promises. Just be here. That's all I need. He returned the kiss with interest, his hand sliding into her hair. I can do that, though I make no promises about the dramatic declarations. I am 800 years old. I have had a long time to develop a flair for the theatrical. Fiona laughed against his mouth. I noticed. They kissed for a while, learning each other now that they had time. Now that the curse was broken and the crisis was past, Valerius was careful with his strength, gentle in a way that suggested he'd had a lot of practice being intimate with more fragile partners. We should sleep, he murmured eventually. The sun is fully up. You will feel it pulling at you soon. He was right. Fiona could feel exhaustion creeping over her, heavy and irresistible. Stay with me? Always. He settled them both under the covers, his cool body solid against hers. Sleep, beloved. I will be here when you wake. Fiona closed her eyes and let the day sleep take her. She woke to darkness and the smell of blood. For a moment, She panicked, then realized Valerius was sitting beside the bed with a glass of what looked like wine but definitely wasn't. "Easy," he said, seeing her confusion. "You have been asleep for nearly 12 hours. This is normal for the first few days of transformation, and you need to feed again." The scent of blood made her fangs descend. She took the glass carefully, trying not to think too hard about what she was drinking. It was warm and rich and satisfied something deep inside her that she hadn't known existed. "Where did it come from?" she asked when the glass was empty. "We keep stores, donated from willing humans, paid fairly for their contribution." Valerius set the glass aside. "I will take you to meet our regular donors tomorrow. They will be your primary source until you are comfortable hunting." Hunting? Fiona's stomach twisted. "We do not kill," he reminded her, "but we do hunt identified donors, seduce them into willingness, feed and erase their memory of it. It is an art form and a necessary skill. But you need not learn it immediately. There was so much to learn, so much that was different now." Fiona felt the weight of it pressing down on her. "One thing at a time," Valerius said, reading her expression. "Tonight, we focus on control. Come." He led her to a training room where several vampires were sparring. They all stopped when Valerius entered, bowing respectfully. "My mate needs to learn to control her strength," he announced. "Who wishes to help?" A tall male vampire stepped forward. He had the same white hair and pale skin as all the others, but moved with a warrior's grace. "I would be honored, my king." "Fiona, this is Lysander. He has been our weapons master for 3 centuries. Valerius gestured her forward. "He will teach you the basics." The next hours were humbling. Fiona learned she could accidentally crush stone, could move faster than she could process, could hear conversations happening 3 rooms away. Everything was too much, too strong, too intense. She broke training weapons, knocked Lysander across the room by accident, and at one point punched a hole through a wall. But slowly, gradually, she started to get control. Started to learn how to move in this new body, how to gauge her own strength. "Excellent progress," Lysander said, genuinely impressed. "Most newborns take weeks to achieve this level of control." "She is exceptional," Valerius said, and the pride in his voice made Fiona's heart flutter. After training, they ate, or rather, Fiona drank another glass of blood while Valerius kept her company. She was starting to get used to it, though she still mourned the loss of regular food. "You can eat, technically," Valerius explained. "It simply provides no nourishment and tastes like ash. Some vampires still do it for the memory of mortality. Most of us stop after a few decades. That's depressing." "Yes." He didn't sugarcoat it. "Many things about this existence are, but many things are also beautiful. You will see." Over the next weeks, Fiona adjusted to her new life. She learned to navigate London by night, to identify safe feeding sources, to use her enhanced senses without becoming overwhelmed. Valerius was patient with her, answering every question, helping her through every struggle. And slowly they fell deeper in love. It wasn't the desperate connection of that first night anymore. Now it was quieter, steadier. She learned that he liked to read philosophy in the early evening, that he still practiced sword fighting, even though modern vampires used guns, that he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. He learned that she hummed when she was healing, that she still cried at sad movies even though vampires weren't supposed to cry, that she made terrible puns that made him groan. They were building a life together, a strange supernatural life, but a life nonetheless. 6 weeks after her transformation, Fiona opened a night clinic in Southwark. It operated from dusk to dawn, serving supernatural clientele and humans who worked night shifts. Word spread quickly that the Vampire King's mate was a healer, and soon she had more patients than she could handle. Valerius insisted on guards, on safety measures, on a dozen protections. But he also gave her space to work, to build something of her own in this new existence. "You are happy," he observed one night, watching her return from the clinic with that soft expression he got sometimes. "I am," Fiona realized. "I thought I would miss the sun, and I do. But this is good too. Different but good." He pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "I was terrified you would hate me eventually, that you would wake up one day and realize what you had given up. I won't." She looked up at him. "I chose this, Valerius. I chose you, and I would do it again. I love you," he said simply. "I have loved you since the moment you argued with my guards about patient confidentiality. I will love you until the stars burn out." "That's very dramatic," Fiona said, but her voice was thick with emotion. "I warned you I was theatrical." He kissed her properly then, deep and claiming. "But I mean every word. You are mine, Fiona Ashford, my mate, my beloved, my saving grace, and I am yours for as long as you will have me." "Forever then," she whispered against his lips. "I'll have you forever." They made love that night, slow and sweet, learning every inch of each other. Afterwards, Fiona lay in his arms and thought about the future stretching ahead of them. Centuries of nights, of healing and loving and building a life in the shadows. It wasn't what she'd imagined for herself when she woke up that morning 6 weeks ago, but it was perfect anyway. 3 months after her transformation, Fiona stood before the court to be formally recognized as the Vampire King's mate. It was a grand ceremony, full of ancient ritual and modern celebration. Vampires came from courts around the world to witness it, to pay their respects. Seraphine helped her prepare, fastening an elaborate gown that looked like it was woven from shadows and starlight. "You have adapted remarkably well," she said. "Many newborns struggle for years. But you seem to have found your place." "I had good teachers," Fiona said, "and a very patient mate." Seraphine's lips quirked. "He is different with you, softer. In 800 years I have never seen him like this. Is that good or bad?" "It is good," Seraphine said firmly. "Power without love makes monsters. You remind him of his humanity. That is a gift." The ceremony was beautiful. Valerius stood before his assembled court in formal attire, looking every inch the ancient king he was. When Fiona joined him, he took her hands and spoke the ritual words binding them together. "Before these witnesses I claim Fiona Ashford as my mate, my equal, my partner, my beloved. Let all who would threaten her know they threaten me. Let all who would harm her face my wrath. She is mine to protect, mine to cherish, mine to love until the end of days." Then it was her turn. "Before these witnesses I claim Valerius as my mate, my equal, my partner, my beloved. I give him my loyalty, my trust, my heart. I will stand beside him through whatever comes for as long as we both exist." The court erupted in celebration. They were officially, irrevocably bound now. Married in the way of vampires, which was deeper and more permanent than any human ceremony. Valerius kissed her in front of everyone, claiming and tender all at once. "My queen," he murmured against her lips. "My Fiona, yours," she agreed. "Always yours." The celebration lasted until dawn, vampires drinking and dancing and rejoicing. Fiona met dozens more immortals, each with their own story of how they'd joined the court. Some had been turned centuries ago, others were relatively new like her. All of them treated her with respect that bordered on reverence. "They love you," Valerius said, watching her interact with a group of younger vampires. "You have given them hope. So many of us hate what we are, regret our transformations. But you chose this willingly, chose it for love. That means something to them." "I just want to help people," Fiona said. "Same as I always have, and you do more than you know." He drew her into a quiet alcove away from the crowd. "Thank you, Fiona, for saving me, for choosing me, for loving me despite everything I am. You make it sound like it was hard." She touched his face, tracing the sharp line of his jaw. "Loving you is the easiest thing I've ever done." He kissed her then, deep and desperate, and she melted into him. They'd have to return to the celebration soon, but for now, it was just the two of them. Just Fiona and Valerius, healer and king, human and vampire, bound together for eternity. A year after her transformation, Fiona stood in her clinic treating a werewolf with silver poisoning. She'd expanded her practice to include all supernatural creatures, and word had spread through the hidden world that she was trustworthy. Valerius appeared in the doorway, watching her work with that soft expression he got. When she finished and the werewolf left with instructions to rest, he crossed to her. "Come with me," he said. "I have something to show you." He led her through London's streets to a building she'd never noticed before. Inside was a vast library, even larger than the archive beneath the compound. "This is the eternal collection," Valerius explained. "Every piece of human knowledge we have deemed worth preserving. Art, literature, science, history, all of it maintained for future generations." He led her deeper, to a section filled with portraits and photographs. "This is the Hall of Mates. Every vampire in our line who found their perfect match, their stories preserved for eternity." At the end of the hall, a new portrait had been hung. It showed Fiona and Valerius together, painted in stunning detail. She was in her formal gown from the mating ceremony, he in his ancient regalia. But it was the way they looked at each other that took her breath away, like nothing else in the world mattered but the person beside them. Beneath the portrait was a plaque, Valerius and Fiona, the king who was saved by love, and the healer who chose eternity. "You did this," Fiona whispered. "I wanted to remember," Valerius said softly. "Wanted to preserve this moment, this feeling, for however long we exist, so that 1,000 years from now we can look at this and remember the night you came to heal a curse and instead healed my heart." Fiona turned to him, tears she couldn't shed burning in her eyes. "I love you, so much it terrifies me sometimes." "I love you too," he pulled her close. "Thank you for taking a chance on a dying vampire king. Thank you for being brave enough to change everything for me. Thank you for giving me forever. Thank you for making forever worth living," she replied. They stood there together in the Hall of Mates, surrounded by centuries of love stories, and Fiona knew that theirs was just beginning. Decades passed. then centuries. Fiona became known throughout the supernatural world as the greatest healer of her age. She saved countless lives, taught other healers her techniques, and built a legacy that would outlast even her immortal existence. And through it all, Valerius was beside her, protecting her, loving her, building a life with her that transcended anything either of them had imagined. On their 100th anniversary, they stood on the roof of the compound watching London sprawl beneath them. The city had changed unrecognizably from the one Fiona had known as a human, but they had adapted together. "Do you ever regret it?" Valerius asked. "Giving up mortality?" Fiona thought about it honestly. She missed the sun sometimes, missed the simple pleasure of eating without it tasting like ash, missed the friends she'd had to leave behind as they aged and she didn't. But she also loved the life they'd built, loved the people they'd saved together, the court they'd strengthened, the love that grew deeper with each passing year. "No," she said finally. "Not for a second, you. I regret nothing except that I did not meet you sooner," Valerius said. "But perhaps we both needed those centuries to become people worthy of each other." Very philosophical. "I have had a long time to practice." He pulled her close, and they stood there together, king and queen, healer and warrior, two souls bound by choice and love and magic. "To the next 100 years," Fiona said. "To eternity," Valerius corrected and kissed her under the stars. And far below, in the compound they called home, vampires went about their nights secure in the knowledge that their king was happy, their queen was strong, and love real, true, transformative love was possible even for immortals. The curse that had nearly killed Valerius was long forgotten, but the sacrifice that broke it, the love that bloomed from desperation and choice, would be remembered for as long as vampires existed. A reminder that sometimes the greatest magic isn't in spells or power, but in the decision to give everything for someone else. Fiona had come to heal a curse eating his veins. The vampire king had begged her not to touch him, and in the end, they had saved each other not just from death, but from the loneliness that had haunted them both. They had forever now, and they would spend every moment of it grateful for the night their paths crossed, for the choice they made, for the love that transformed them both into something greater than they could have ever been alone. In the Hall of Mates, their portrait hung in a place of honor, and beneath it visitors would pause and read the story of the healer and the king, the sacrifice and the salvation, the love that conquered even death itself. It was a story that would be told for thousands of years, a legend among vampires, a reminder that love was always worth the risk, always worth the sacrifice, always worth choosing. And somewhere in the London night, Fiona and Valerius continued their eternal dance, healing, protecting, loving, living together, forever, exactly as they'd chosen.